All right, Bre, you can come on in. How are you? How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. Happy to have you. Excited to have you. Do you want to take a second, introduce yourself to everybody watching today?
Yeah. My name is Bre Morrissey. I'm a local independent pop artist based in Chicago. I'm originally from the south suburbs of Chicago. And I've been living in the city for the past 2 to 3 years now. I've been making music for eight or 9 years now. I'm currently on the release of my upcoming sophomore album. And yeah.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, I'll start with you the same way we start pretty much all of these, which is if you could use 3 words to describe yourself, whether it be you as a person, you as an artist, what 3 words would you choose?
I would say bubbly, passionate, and sincere.
Those are 3 great ones. I'd say that sometimes we get some iffy answers, not to slight those that have given them before, but that was a good 3, confident. Well, we'll start. You talked about, you're from the south suburbs, everything like that. How do you feel that, being in and around Chicago has kind of informed you as an artist? How much of it does it kind of play into your music?
I think it plays like a really huge role because I think once I moved to the city, I feel like it opened me up to a world of just so much diversity and beauty, and like living in the suburbs growing up, like I think I always felt very sheltered and felt very bored. And I'm never bored here. And I've created a beautiful community of people. I lived in upstate New York when I moved to college, and that really opened up my world, definitely. But re-experiencing Chicago as someone in their 20s and early 20s, I think really impacted my music because even unintentionally, like if you abbreviate my upcoming album, it's CTA.
Oh, wow.
So I feel like it's like subconsciously, like it's found its way into like my music,
yeah,
and whatnot.
Definitely.
That answers the question.
No, that's awesome. I had not realized that.
Yeah.
Big Redline fan, I guess. I didn't realize either.
Yeah.
So your first album, right? So
Yes.
we talked about this a little bit off camera beforehand. While you've been gone. One thing I was curious about, I listened to a few tracks off the album, like on my way in today. How do you feel that album kind of has informed your vision, your process as an artist, going into your new, album, singles, and just new music that you have coming out over the next, month?
I think with While You've Been Gone, that was a record that I made actually for college. So we had to create an album basically throughout the 4 years that we were there. That was our senior project that we called it our senior playback. And when I first started making the record before I knew it would be, I guess, a record, I was doing a lot of it based on piano. So I was writing stuff just on like 4 chord progressions, and then I ended up meeting my first week of school this guy named Joram Motley, and he's actually my longtime collaborator, one of my closest friends in my life. And then I would go and meet up with him, and I'd play him like the song, the 4 chords, and he's this like piano wizard. And he doesn't need sheet music. He can just hear it, know how to play it, and then add his little thing. And then he's also a producer, so he produces in Logic. So a lot of those songs were written, I think, a lot of those songs were like my first songs, to be completely frank. So I think it informed this album because it just taught me so many different ways to create. And, it also happened midway through the pandemic as well. So there were some songs that were written my sophomore or freshman year of college. And then once I was in my junior year and in my senior year, I started to experiment more with producing myself rather than just him taking on that role. And then after that album was done, and it was out in the world or whatever, I studied abroad in Korea for a little bit and met a lot of producers over there and was experimenting there as well. And yeah, and it just kind of like evolved into finding out all these different processes, I suppose, and all the different ways that you can create something, and it doesn't have to be one way of creating a song, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it sounds like that collaborative aspect of your process is huge, right? And it's something that has seemingly evolved. I mean, even as you talked about your time moving to Chicago and finding the community here as part of it. Is that something you think that you do consciously, or is that kind of just part of the process that you've embraced naturally as you've made more music, like, and gotten a little older?
Like the co-producing aspect,
Or even just collaborating with new artists, and like how much of that you use as like a driving force in your own work?
Funnily enough, Joram is like one of the few, like I really don't collaborate actually a lot with people. Not because I don't want to, but because when I was in college, a lot of people didn't, a lot of my peers, I don't know, they didn't show a lot of interest in wanting to work with me, because a lot of the music that people were making in college was very like indie, basement, grunge, like live instrumentation, while I was trying to go the more electronic route. And Joram was one of the only ones that was also trying to go that route, where we're doing like pop and R&B and hip hop and trap and, you know, rock and like, you know, just fusing all these genres together. But now that I'm in this Chicago now, and I've been exposed to so many incredibly talented artists, now I feel like it is absolutely something that I really want to push myself, because for a while I've gotten very comfortable just relying on myself and him. But it is something I really want to expand upon, because I think you're only going to get better if you continue to collaborate and work with people.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. Yeah, well, especially like, so talking even, well, I don't want to leave the topic of the new album, right? So what does the album mean to you, right? Like as an opportunity to talk to the audience and the prospective audience of the people that are going to be listening, like what do you like to talk about when you think of this album and what it means to you as it comes out over the next month?
It's a hard question, because I think that like this album, like it represents honestly the entirety of my 20s. So it's a representation of the past like 5 to 6 years of my life, and all of the things that I've been navigating through and either experiencing for the first time or re-experiencing through a different perception. But like, it's called Catharsis because when I got to a point where I had well, actually, no, not most of the album, but when I'd had the final track, the title track, Catharsis, originally it was called The Awakening, because I was writing it and I was like, oh my God, like, is this what it feels like to like be connected with yourself or be reconnected or like find yourself again? Because I felt like for a long time I had been living life with like my eyes closed or something, and I think there's so many things that contributed to that feeling and that way of existing. But I think through the creation of this album, I was finally addressing and tackling feelings that I've been having for a really long time that I was so afraid to say out loud and admit to myself, like because of fear, guilt, shame, pain, whatever it may be, like, you know, especially like guilt and like shame. There's a lot of themes within the record that relate to my relationship with my body, my relationship with dating, my relationship with just the entire world around me. I think without saying it, but saying it, like, I feel like we're living in like a bit of a twilight zone right now, and it's very overwhelming and very just surreal sometimes, where I'm like, I don't feel like this is real. Like, what is happening? And then when I was making it, I was also reading a lot of high fantasy novels, and I feel like fantasy novels or sci-fi books like oftentimes are just a reflection of our world, but just in a less obvious way unless you really look for it, you know? And so I was very inspired by these characters in these books that have wings. And one of the worst things that can happen to them is having their wings clipped. And I had felt at some point in my life, you know, mine were clipped, whether it be I allowed them to be, whether I did it, whether someone else did it, whether it was just an accumulation of things. And I feel through this record I healed those wounds, or have gotten really close to that healing, you know. So I don't know. That's like a very long-winded answer.
No, that's amazing.
But
It's really interesting to hear like your opinion on your own work, right? Like and your perception of the art that you've been making for so long. It brings a few questions to my mind. First and foremost, particularly about the emotions that are going into making the album and the art in it and the emotions that it's trying to transpose. How much of that do you think about onto the audience, right? Like you obviously, our exposure is mostly filmmakers, actors, all that kind of stuff. So we have a very kind of acute relationship with our art. And I'm always interested to hear, particularly from musicians, how do the emotions that you want the audience to feel, listeners, how much of that plays into your mind when you're writing a song, when you're producing a song or performing it, versus how much is it for you to kind of use as an outlet for your own emotions?
Good question. I feel like it depends on the song, and it depends on, I think it depends on the song, but I think, honestly, with my first album, I was a lot more focused on, is this relatable to people? Is this something that's, digestible? Is this something that's gonna connect with people? And I think sometimes when you're making that the driving force behind why you're writing something or creating something, sometimes I think that can take away from it a little bit. Not always, but a little bit. Especially when I listen to that album versus this album, this one feels raw, unfiltered, and every friend of mine that I've shown it to, I feel like the topics are very universal, especially with everything that, we go through in our 20s. It's a very emotional time. But I would say this album, the second album, for the most part, it was I was just, I would pull up a sample that I liked and I'd loop it, and then literally the melody and lyrics would just pour out of me. I wouldn't have anything written, and then I'd write the song within an hour or two. And then I'd be like, oh my God, I didn't even know I was feeling that way. And then my roommate at the time, Danny, was he'd be kind of listening, and he opened his door, he's like, oh my God, wait, I relate to that. So I think if you are leading it with if you're leading the songwriting with vulnerability and honesty and transparency and all that, I think it's gonna find relatability amongst people no matter what. But don't get me wrong, when I'm producing and creating the sonic world, I am thinking about does this hit? Is this a banger? Is this gonna make someone want to shake their ass? Is this gonna make someone want to cry? Is this what kind of environment is this going to be the best place to be played in? So.
No, it's really interesting. No, I mean it's interesting to hear because the perspective is always different, right?
Yeah,
for all people. But yeah, no, that's pretty rock on what I imagine what you would say. Yeah, that's really good. So talk about inspirations and stuff, because you mentioned it briefly when you're talking about fantasy novels and stuff like that. Do you tend to draw a lot of your inspiration from literature, or does it is it a broad spectrum? What is it like for you personally?
Funnily enough, I feel this Catharsis, I think, was the first time I really was pulling from literature in a way, or feeling very just inspired and just being oh wow, I feel I would listen to this album and then I'd be reading this series and I'm wow, there's things that are just crossing over that I didn't even intend to, but they just kind of happened. I think a lot of the things that you consume just tend to follow into the things that you make. But growing up, I was a really big reader. I would read books all the time, but then I kind of fell out of it. And then again, it just felt like everything started to fall into place. I started to do things that I did when I was young and that inspired me when I was a kid, or, just kind of made me escape a little bit. And books was one of those things, and film was one of those things as well. So I hope, moving forward with the next album, I continue to pull from literature and pull from, those things, because I think they're all interconnected. they're just a different medium in expressing whatever we want to say, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wouldn't say my first album was really like literature inspired, or I wasn't reading a lot during that time. That album was very much about like grief and loss and trying to figure out what my sound is and like what I like, how the fuck to write a song.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like how does this mix sound? I don't know. I feel like the 8K range might be a little crazy, but you know, so yeah.
So do you think that it's interesting too, like do you have touchstones of inspiration then? Like that's kind of something that I'm always interested in talking to artists about is I find that a lot of artists in conversation have similar experiences of what you're talking about, of revisiting things that have inspired them in the past. I know that I operate that way all the time, where it feels like, you know, in some part you almost lose that element of what used to inspire you. So in search of something, you go back for it. Do you feel that that's something that you do consistently, even past what you had mentioned previously, or are you kind of constantly trying to find new things that are inspiring you in a larger scale than looking at stuff that you know previously has?
I would say I think that's also kind of a mixture of both. I think this specific album, I think the awakening was about recentering. It was about awakening within myself and kind of finding myself, like going back to, you know, earlier versions of myself and, you know, reconnecting with past versions of myself, I think informed this record to allow me to even make it. But like I think I'm still like always consuming new stuff just to see like, you know, what inspires me. But who knows? The next record it might be it might be not anything like this one. You know, it might be very different where I'm not taking from my past. But I think this record in particular was about reconnecting with the past and reconnecting with who I was before life became life and things got crazy and things happened. So
are you hoping that your audience listens to your new album and feels that same way about themselves?
I hope that when people listen to this, I hope it makes them, one, not feel alone in whatever it is that they're feeling, because I think for me, all of these feelings that I've been having, I felt like I know that I'm not the only one that feels this way, but I don't feel like we're talking about a lot of the things that I feel that I talk about in this record. Like, but I do hope that after someone listens to it, I hope that I guess it does, yeah, allow them to explore reconnecting with themselves if they have been feeling disconnected, because I think that is what it is about. It's about purging yourself of like emotions that are pent up and feelings and whatnot. It's about purifying yourself from all the bullshit and just being real with yourself and being honest.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think that's beautiful. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So yeah, continue. I mean, I'd be remiss if we, you know, hyper-fixated on the entire interview on one thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're excited about the album, looking forward to it, and I'm sure everybody else is. We're super stoked. But more talking about you in general and you as an artist in general, like, who do you look at in terms of artists, whether it be, you know, in film, whether it be authors or musicians, that you find yourself kind of like drawn to, just as like a consumer of music or art or whatever it may be? Who are your kind of your touchstones for those kinds of things?
I would say growing up, funnily enough, well, like maybe not funnily enough, but I've been noticing a lot of like, oh, it makes sense. But growing up, when I was like 3 or 4, the first record that I ever bought was Diana Ross and the Supremes. So from a young age, I've always been very attracted to more R&B, soulful music. And then when I started to get older, I feel like I distanced myself from that because like all of my friends were consuming like pop music. And I love pop music, don't get me wrong, but once I was in college, I really started to like re-explore like R&B, pop, like pop R&B and hip hop and trap, but like with pop elements. And I feel like artists that I feel represent that style that I am most inclined to listen to and most attracted to is like Victoria Monet, Tinashe, Ash Nico, Rina Sawayama, Ariana Grande, and then K-pop too. I do love me some K-pop, but especially like heavy on like Victoria Monet and Tinashe for sure.
Yeah.
But I did grow up listening to a lot of classic 80s rock music, so I was a big Van Halen fan as a kid, and Journey as well. So yeah, definitely like different ends of the spectrum, but I still think there are a lot of things that cross over like melodically sometimes. But yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever pursue music that you would think would be like out of your taste?
I haven't yet, but I totally would. I think it's just about finding the right person that has better instincts for it. Like, for example, like my oldest brother, Connor, he grew up listening to a lot of like screamo, rock, hard metal music. And there were certain bands that I liked that he listened to, and there were certain ones that were not my cup of tea, but all respect, you know? Like, I don't know if I could ever make like a Linkin Park song, like early 2000s Linkin Park. I don't know if I could ever do that, but if I had the right person that is their pocket and that is what they do, where they can help create that sonic world, because that's just not something that I feel my ears tend to gravitate towards while I'm making music. But I'd be curious to see what I could create with someone that could facilitate that. But I'm always open to experiment and try. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So kind of a more general question, but that's like super interesting, is how do you feel about music in general? Like the music industry, right? Like it's something, it's kind of a hot button topic for a lot of folks across all artistic industries, particularly right now, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything, I guess I'll like focus the question more, are there anything more in particular that excites you about music coming up that you're looking forward to?
I do feel like there's a shift in diversity within music now. I feel like there's a lot, at least for me, and you know, maybe it's just like I could be having a little bit of a tunnel vision because I'm maybe more subconsciously looking for artists that are more diverse, like not just like I want, like it's really important to me like to be supporting like queer artists and BIPOC artists, just because I think that they're the foundation of some of the most beautiful and impactful art because of their experiences. So I do think that that is something that really excites me and makes me really eager to be involved, especially in Chicago right now, because like every bill that I've ever been on, there's always been like everyone is queer, everyone is, you know, like it's just so much more diverse, at least for me now, than it was like a few years ago when I was in Albany. It was just, no offense, it was just a lot of white straight men, and like their experiences are very important too. Like everyone's experience is important, you know, but I think it's important to have certain voices uplifted just a little bit more because their experiences are so different. And I think art and the purpose of it is to share our experiences so we can understand each other, because it's the only way I feel like it's one of the few ways that we can actually attempt to put ourselves in each other's shoes. Like I feel growing up, when I was watching film and movies with my brother Ronan, like I think it was like the main reason why I was able to like take a step back and be like, whoa, like my experience is so different than this person's because I watched this. And I have a completely shifted perception of the world now because of this. And I think that's the same thing with, you know, music as well. So I would say that's what I'm very excited seeing in the media right now.
Yeah.
But
yeah, definitely. No, I mean, like I just saw something the other day that was like the top 5 songs charting in the U.S. and 3 of them were K-pop songs. And it's like, does that
K-pop Demon Hunters.
And you mentioned it earlier, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, does that exist 10 years ago, right? And I think that's a very specific example, but a very valid one in this case to show that like, oh, the U.S. in particular, and we're talking from an acute angle, right? Like we're in the United States now, but would the U.S. folks that are listening to that music now be exposed to those kinds of music and that song 10 years ago? Probably not, right?
Right. Well, even like, because I think I got into K-pop in like 2017, 2018. And I got into it honestly because I had a friend in high school that was really into BTS, and she'd been like pushing, like slowly trying to like brainwash me into becoming an ARMY, and she's like, you gotta listen to them, and I was like, and then I finally did, and like to be able to listen to a song that's in a completely different language but still completely understand it sonically, I think is like, again, the purpose of all of this.
Yeah.
But I remember like then, like 2018, 2019, like you would never hear a K-pop song in the mall. I walk in the mall, I'm hearing K-pop all the time. I'm like, what? I'm like, the kids these days, the teenagers, they're really like, period, guys.
Yeah, definitely. No, it says a lot about, art in general as like a universal language, right? Like I think it's similar to like when we see paintings that we don't understand how somebody did it, but we don't really care, right? The meaning is beautiful no matter what.
Right.
So, really interesting. But you touched on this a little bit earlier, and I want to like, something I really want to talk about is performing, right? Something that whenever we have musicians in, I always like to talk about it. For you, you talked about particularly your, good experiences performing in Chicago. Do you have like favorite venues that you've performed at, or even favorite shows that you can remember and like kind of draw back to as like, moments in your career up into this point where you're just, stoked to talk about?
Yeah, I think my two venues that I performed at the most and I've had the best experiences at are Reggie's and Book Club. Reggie's, it's actually so funny. So when I moved back to Chicago in 2022, I was living with my parents for a little bit, and then I moved into a place in Avondale for like 6 months, and then moved out, and then moved back to my parents' place, and then moved to Lakeview with my childhood best friend, Danny Dean. And we lived off Roscoe and Halstead, so we could hear the bump of progress like right next door. And when I was there, I was kind of in the middle of kind of creating the record and stuff, and I wasn't necessarily looking for gigs just because I hadn't done a lot of performance. Like it's funnily enough, like I grew up a competitive Irish dancer, so, and like theater kid and choir kid, so I performed my whole life, but I feel like performing for your own music, and it's like your own identity, it's like, how do I want to represent myself? How do I want to be perceived? And so at that time, I wasn't like looking, because I didn't even know like where to start. Like I didn't even know how to like properly contact venues and like, get myself on a bill. Like I had no idea how it worked. And it just so happened that this guy Owen from Reggie's, his talent buyer, found my stuff on Bandcamp and heard, I think he really liked my song Bad Luck with Three. And he reached out to me. He's like, I'm really trying to get more pop artists at Reggie's, because Reggie's is historically more of a rock kind of scene. He's like, I'm really trying to diversify. And I was like, sign me up. And so my friend Joram flew out to accompany me, and I had a good friend, Joseph Flynn, and he played guitar. And it was my first ever show in Chicago, and I headlined with these two other amazing artists, Hannah Fry and Julia, and that opened up just a door that was like, I didn't even know was there. Like I got introduced to a bunch of people because they were posting on Instagram stories, and then local artists saw the show, and they were like, oh my God, like, I'd love to perform with you. And I'm like, I'd love to perform with you. And then from then on, I just started getting asked to be on bills, and then I got to perform at this one venue. I can't remember what the heck it's called now. It's kind of embarrassing, but it was for this company called Breaking Sound, and I ended up meeting this artist, Big Kid, and they are the graphic designer for Book Club. And I was talking to them, I'm like, I love your music, like if you ever want to be in a bill together, let me know. And they're like, well, I'm actually having an album release show this May. Do you want to be on the bill? And I'm like, yes, I do. And so then that opened that opportunity with Book Club, and I just performed a show at Book Club there like a week and a half ago. And it's been really fun, like being up there and performing this music. it was nerve-wracking in the beginning because it's the first time I'm like performing it to people, and to hear so many people receive it so well and are asking, when is it out? Is it out? And I'm like, when I performed at Reggie's Rock Club last summer for Keiko, this American Idol artist, when I opened up for him, like, it was very surreal experiencing all these people that I've never met, and they don't know who I am, and they're like, oh my God, when is this gonna be out? And I'm like, a year. It's gonna be a while. So yeah, it's been like, I think very like reaffirming that my instincts are correct with the music I'm making, and then, you know, I want to get to a point with my performance style where I have like dancers and I have like a band and I have like a full story with my show. Like, it's very theater kid-esque that I want to like play into.
Yeah, tell a story with the performance. All right, well, we're coming, unfortunately, close to the end here. So I've got a few, what we like to do is also some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So these are always fun too, similar to the first, but no pressure, just as first thing that rolls off the top of your head, right?
Okay.
So this one is easy. When you perform, do you still get nervous?
A little bit.
Okay.
I feel like as time has gone on, I get less nervous, but I also have cannabis to thank. take a little bit of something, and it just eases like the nerves in my stomach.
Yeah.
But
there you go.
other than that, sometimes, yeah.
All right. Favorite song on your first album?
Proud of Me.
Proud of Me. Okay. Favorite song on your upcoming album?
Same Clothes.
Okay. Favorite venue to perform in Chicago? If you could only choose one to only perform at.
Book club.
Book club. Good choice. I'm a local, so I'm happy to hear that. Okay, so if there was one artist that you right now who's releasing music actively that you could listen to exclusively for the next year, who would you choose?
Adele.
Okay, one artist who is gone, unfortunately, retired, deceased, who would you pick?
Ooh. Michael Jackson.
Jackson. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then last, maybe the hardest question to ask a musician in the same way that it is a filmmaker. What's your favorite song ever?
For a really, really long time, it was Dreams by Van Halen. I'd say right now, it's probably still, oh my God, I can't even remember the name of it, but it's a Rina Sawayama song, and it's on her second album, Hold the Girl. If I remember it, I'll say, but I can't remember.
We'll clip it in if
If I remember, I have to look it. I'll know it when I see it.
No, I'm the same way. No worries. All right, so Bre, if you want to take just like a minute, talk about what you got coming up, what you want people to look up, and just thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
It was great. And
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I have my new, do I look at you?
Yeah, directly into the camera.
Okay, beautiful. My upcoming album, Catharsis, The Awakening, will be out October 24th. I have 2 more singles that will be coming out prior to the release. One is called Trust a Man, and the second one, or third one, is called Vengeance. They will be accompanied by 2 music videos, which will be out around the time that they drop. And then you can still add With My Nature, which is the first single, to your Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, whatever platform that you use, and pre-save Trust a Man, which is on my Instagram bio.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Bre, again. It was a blast, and we're super stoked on everything.
Me too.
Awesome. Great.